Thank you for working on that, Mike. Appreciate it. Okay, great. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's just a couple of minutes after 8:30. And we are recording audio and video today. I think it's our first time using the equipment, second time. And one of the problems is with the size of this room, apparently our small desktop recorder wasn't picking up everything. So if someone does have a comment, please raise your hand, identify yourself, we'll call on you, and then go to the podium and it will all get recorded.
Everybody please sign in if you haven't signed in already.
Linda is away today, and she helped get everything set up, but what we didn't get was our name tags. And I don't know where they're kept now. When we met down the office, they were, I don't know where she has them, so sorry about that, but if anyone speaks that we don't know, we'll certainly identify ourselves. So, today we have, Jim is with us, Mark, David, good morning, Bob's here, Mike G's here, Mike K is here. We know that Sue is away, and I forget where Rob is, but he's away. So those two people will not be here. So point of order for voting purposes. David, could you take Rob's place?
I am ready.
Okay, thank you. So we have some visitors this morning. Thank you. Hello. And Sean Fleming?
Sean is my name.
Okay, and you're a relatively new resident of New London?
Correct. Hello, everybody.
Yes, you do.
I didn't know I was going to be recorded. My name is Sean Fleming. I moved here in October, just down on Pleasant Street. My partner got a job with LSPA, Lake Sunapee, so we moved up here from Bedford area. I'm new to the area. I'm new to New Hampshire. I've only been here for 2.5 years. California my whole life, but you meet a New Hampshire girl, you move to New Hampshire. I'm here because I care about the environment, a little bit more about me. I am a research fellow with the U.S. Forest Service. I specialize in forest fire ecology and large-scale data sets. So the easiest way to say is I use satellites to track fires and study past fires, and I specialize in maps. So any map you can think of, I can make it. I love maps, mostly satellite imagery stuff, but also pretty maps, just anything map-related. And I'm here because I wanted to get involved and check it out. Like I said, I'm new to the area, and I just found out about this like 3 months ago. I didn't even know this was a thing, and someone told me I should go, so I'm here. And it's wonderful to meet everybody.
Well, thank you for coming. Interesting background. We're going to be talking about a forestry project a little later in the program. That you may be interested in that, but thank you. Let's see. Okay, is there any public comment at this time? We get a lot of stuff on the agenda, so maybe that will cover. Yes.
Maybe 5 minutes for an update on the power pollinator center.
Okay, your time is okay, so when we get to, maybe when we get to Low Plain, we can talk about that. Thank you, okay. Permit applications, Mike?
Okay, we did have some things come in. There was a wetlands permit by notification for the construction of a new seasonal crank-up dock on Lake Sunapee. That's on Davis Hill Road, map 6863. Pretty straightforward. And then we had 4 individual sewage disposal system notices. 2 of them were approval for construction, Whole Farm Road and County Road. 1 approval for operation, which was 136 Little Brook Road. And a brand-new permit application for Wilmot Center Road. And that was all that came in since last month.
So nothing that requires action. Okay. That's good. Thank you. Next item is the meeting minutes, the last meeting, July 17th. Anyone have any comments, edits, corrections? Mark?
2 changes to the minutes. On the old new business, first bullet, second sentence, currently reads, they will be putting signs up in the fall. That should be, they will be putting signs up in 2025. And second change on the third bullet, also under old/new business, third bullet, last sentence, Mark V. left a letter on the boats and tree stand. That should be Mark V. left a notice on the boats and tree stand. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, corrections?
Yeah. We,
Go ahead, Joe.
I probably put it in the trails sections. We had a brief discussion about the map updates and that some of the maps aren't accurate or they disagree with each other. And Mark and I took an action to,
Okay, so do
In the
we
map.
need to add something?
I
Do you want to just send that to Linda
I will,
or to Kara?
I will.
And subject to those,
Don't we have that under trails? The map part of it? In other words, the trail configuration information on the maps does not match the actual trails, isn't
Yes,
that?
you're right, Mike.
So that's really covered,
It's
I
covered.
believe.
That's covered. I missed that.
Although, Jim, you volunteered to be involved, and that's not reflected in the minutes.
Yeah, that could be added.
Yeah.
So we want to add a sentence on the back end of that to say that Jim Dexter volunteered to help with the project.
Add me along with Mark and Mike that are already there.
Okay. Yeah, let's just do that then. Okay.
is that a motion, Mike?
Well, we'll add that onto that second sentence of that paragraph, to add Jim's name. And then I make a motion that we accept the minutes as amended.
All in favor?
Aye?
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, this is an ongoing project, but just an update on our Conservation Commission town-owned land trailhead street numbers. We're in the process of getting those assigned. We did get our number for Filbert Crescenti Bog, but Mike had reviewed and come up with some GPS coordinates, but I haven't seen any street numbers yet.
Yeah, I was in contact with Kara about that to find out where things stand, and that's still a work in progress, but basically, I believe there were 8 or 9 locations where we gave GPS coordinates so that we can get addressing. These are for properties that are town-owned, trailhead locations, as opposed to other trails which are on lands that are owned by other entities, whether it's private property by residents or Osborne Sergeant, whoever. So For the properties that are town-owned, we've given the GPS locations, and Kara's going to work out the addressing based on those numbers. Jim Dexter and I were talking earlier, and we're going to be putting the GPS location onto the website so that it's the first step of getting better information for DES, because they had asked us about having the maps updated. We thought it would be a good thing on the website also to include the GPS locations. So besides the addressing, there'll be a GPS location, and we'll do that as an ongoing process. As they come in, we'll update the websites accordingly. And then at some point in time, when we've identified all of the discrepancies on the mapping, we'll have to get all of those updated, including the You Are Here maps at the trailheads. And then that'll have everything coordinated between the handout maps, the trailhead, You Are Here maps, and the website. So it's still a work in progress, I guess a long-winded way. No addressing yet, but it is being worked on.
Okay, but do you have a rough idea of when we might,
She did not give me a
Okay.
time frame.
I mean, they don't have to come all at once.
Yeah, no,
Because we have signs to build, so
yes.
yeah, that'd be good to know. But okay, thanks for the follow-up on that. Okay, Mark, do you want to talk about town-owned lands, conservation easement, monitoring, process, and reports? I guess there's a meeting coming up in September.
Yeah, well, Sue is our point person on that. Sue and I are meeting with Osmond Sargent soon. I can't remember the date, but next week or the week after, just to kick that off. And then I assume Sue is going to coordinate with us as to who's going to monitor what.
Okay,
But I think it'll be pretty much like past years. I don't see any big changes.
and we're going to try to identify parcels
Parcel numbers.
a little more clearly.
Yeah, and,
Okay.
yes, and the other thing is notification of landowners prior to
Right.
monitoring, yeah.
Good, good. That sounds fine. Thank you. Okay, under projects, bog walkway project, specifically the Garden Tundra Loop, the aluminum portion of it is complete. I think that iCountry Aluminum Products did a great job. It was over 3 years, but we did a little bit each year. Actually, we did a lot each year. And the final installation was June 17, 18, and then the angle sections on the June 24th. And they've been paid. I think everybody's happy. So the remaining part is the wooden sections, which are considerably more footage. And Don has been plugging away at that, and you're pretty much done.
Correct. I guess the loop is complete at this point. We do have a couple of sections still to build into the woods, transition areas. We'll need some more lumber to do that. And then any of the bump outs we wish to do for benches need to be done. Yeah, and then, I think we're set. We've talked about trying wood chips in the woods section.
Yeah.
For now. We can always revisit that at another date, another year, but I guess at this point, the basic walkway is down. Railings do still need to be done though, so it'll be another few months.
Good. I'll tell you, we just continue to get positive comments, and not just about the fact that it's being upgraded, but the quality of the work, and it's wider, it's nicer, it's smoother, the boards don't bounce up and down, and it's very, very positive. We did receive another donation this week, which is good. Lynn has that check, by the way, Mike.
Okay, yeah, with the piggy bank, I should note, is also doing quite well. I didn't bring the money today because I knew Lynn was away, but so far, I've collected from the piggy bank $182. So
Wow.
every month, we seem to be getting at least $100. But
That's great.
but I think more importantly, it demonstrates that people appreciate how much better it is, and they're donating to that project of improving the pathway. So I think that's a really good positive sign. And everything that's come in, with the exception of the latest check, all of the thank you notes, thank you letters, I should say, have gone out to everyone. So that's been taken care of.
Okay. And then we are still working on, I think things got a little complicated when some of our numbers weren't quite consistent, and we got that all sorted out now, but we do have the project, and I don't think it has to be done tomorrow, but where we kind of update and thank again the significant donors. I mean, they're all significant, but there were some that were really significant, and Michael has started on that, and I know we kind of got sidetracked when we were getting all of the funds.
Yeah, we have quite a few donors that have made substantial contributions, and I think Mark is working on Muskoma Bank for an additional donation from them for signage and other things. So, yeah, it's going quite well. And then I think our financing has gotten squared away now so that we understand where we are with monies that were approved through the Mary Hatted Fund as opposed to the dollars that we had, our own dollars that we had out of donations, whether business or organizational or private. So we're in a pretty good position, I believe, moving forward. According to my records, we have a balance of $9,849.59 right at this point in time, not including the latest donations or the piggy bank money.
So that's just private donations?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And then again, the $42,000 request from Mary Hatted has been squared away, so that is official, and that is a amount of money that, not that we need all of that, but it is money that can be used for materials, which is going to be important because there's a lot of material needed. As Don had mentioned, there are going to be bump outs and handrails and a lot of other things, and wood chips and such. So we're definitely going to need more money to finish off that project, and it's nice to know that we have Mary Hatted funds available for that purpose.
Good. Thank you very much, Mike.
Bob, it's, am I on there?
No. Get it again. Green, there you go.
Bob, at some point, I'm going to need a list of those who are to receive such a letter.
Right.
And I don't know whether that's going to be 8, 10, 12, or 20, but I think that, I can do the boilerplate letter, but if you or Mike or Mark know personally the person to whom we are writing, it would be nice to get a sentence or two in there that would truly personalize it.
Yeah, I think each letter really has to be kind of tuned to that customer.
Yeah.
Because there are people who made multiple donations. There's one in particular that ended up being a few $1,000s that came in 3 parts. And we don't want, and we'll make sure we get that.
Yeah. Well, probably between you and Mike, you would know what couple of sentences need to go into
Sure.
the letter
Sure.
that would make it good.
Right.
And then need accurate addresses, real names, full names.
Absolutely.
And absolutely accurate addresses.
Yeah. And we should have copies of all those checks and whatever note they might have sent in. Some sent a note, some just sent a check.
Yeah,
And
Yeah, I'll get that over to you.
okay.
I'll take care of getting you that. You just have to tell me what
yeah.
criteria you want to use as far as the amount.
Exactly.
And then I'll
yeah.
get those off of the spreadsheets, and
But it
I
would be
also have
nice-
copies of the checks that were sent, so we can do that. But I'll get that over to you, Mike.
Okay, yeah, because I don't know how many of these people who would be significant contributors know each other, but you really have to be careful of the politics of this so that somebody doesn't say, well, I didn't get a letter, and then we have a...
Oh, and that's one of the decisions we have
Yeah.
to make, at what level
Yes,
you write this letter. But it would be nice if the letter could include sort of a status report update of where we are,
right,
and the fact that, you know, we haven't done the signage yet. It's, you know, going to be planned this year, probably will happen next year, but that's something that needs funding as well. But we'll be sure to do that, and we'll look them over carefully. And then at that same time, as a group, we should talk about the grand list.
yep.
And
And I assume this should be on town letterhead.
yes, definitely, yes.
So does that mean it has to go through Kim, the letter, each letter?
I can send you a blank if you want. and
Yeah.
You just fill it in if you like.
I generally, you know, if it isn't a real burden, I would ask her to at least look at them. You know,
No, I think we should.
yeah, I don't send out anything on a town letterhead without getting it looked at, you know, just,
Yeah. You can get yourself in enough trouble without doing stuff
That's
like
right.
that.
okay. Well, we're going to work on that, and then eventually we'll work on the grand list and see how we want to deal with that. As I mentioned before, personally, and it's just my personal opinion, I am not in favor of listing dollar amounts. I know a lot of people are. They say that generates competition and more activity, but I don't know.
Well, I think it's too late now anyway, if you wanted to create categories
Yeah, yeah.
of giving, you know, and I think that's not something we wanted to do anyway,
No, no.
so.
Well, the original letters that went out to the donors actually did have a dollar amount that was included in the letter. And the point of that was that some organizations or individuals use that for tax purposes.
Sure.
So they need to have the specific amount. But
In
a
their
follow-up
letter.
letter probably doesn't need to have that. They've already been thanked for the specific amount. This would just be a thanks again, and here's what's going on.
No,
type of letter.
I think Bob and I were talking about publicly revealing dollar amounts.
Yeah, no, don't want to do that.
No.
Right. Okay. That's good. So the next project is the American Chestnut Foundation Vermont, New Hampshire Chapter Joint Workday that's scheduled for September 14th. And as you know, we have been trying to work very closely with them and have been working with both the national chapter and the Vermont, New Hampshire chapter. They had their annual meeting in May here at Tracy Library, and that seemed to be a very convenient location for members in the two states. And they took a look at what we're doing and then came up with a proposal that perhaps they could help us in terms of resources, being materials and labor. And they came back with a more formal proposal after looking at our three sites, which at present have about 80 seedlings. Most of them are doing pretty well. Some trees are now over 8 feet tall, and there's still some that are 12 inches tall. But we have found, the last couple of years, the Vermont, New Hampshire chapter has provided us local seed nuts. They come out of a location somewhere around Rutland. And we plant those inside, very controlled. And to date, I think we've had more success with those than we have the stock that we have ordered from the national office and the national nursery. These are interesting trees. You know, they don't just take off like a white pine. They're a little sensitive to a lot of things. But long story short, they made a proposal. A lot of our caging and protection from deer and other animals hasn't been all that great. And part of the reason is it's expensive to do that, to buy tall wire, decent posts, the matting, and then do the physical labor. So some of them have been not perfect. Well, they recognize that, and they said, look, what we'd like to do, you're going to plant 20 more seed nuts that you started this May, so you're going to have about 100. And we've been using wooden grade stakes that are good for maybe 3 years before they rot and break. And they use metal posts. Well, metal posts are great, but they're very expensive. The wire we use some secondhand wire that wasn't the greatest, but they use 2 by 3 inch mesh, 6 foot tall. I think the tallest we have ever used is 4 feet, but we notice on some of them clearly something has reached over the top and eaten some of the branches, so we need taller wire. So what they did is they proposed this workday. They will send volunteers to work with our volunteers, and they proposed providing to us 150 heavy-duty metal posts. And their plan is to use 3 or 4 foot diameter cage, 6 feet high, and secure it with 3 posts, which all seems logical. They've done a lot of this, so my thought on this when they come, let's watch, listen, do what they say, and I think we'll learn a lot. In addition, they provided us 500 feet of heavy-duty 6-foot wire. And Mark and I went Sunday, we went and picked all this stuff up because the president had it in his trailer and he wanted to use his trailer for other things between now and the 14th. So we have that all in hand. So we have 150 posts, 500 feet of wire. That should be roughly enough to do half of our seedlings. And their plan is, if this all goes well, we'll come back next year and do the other 50. And they'll provide the material and labor and so forth. You know, looking at what they provided us, it's of significant value. I mean, I'm not saying we could never do it, but it would put a huge dent in our budget. And, you know, I'm not sure that would be the highest priority. So this is a big thing. They're going to write a kind of a letter of agreement that basically says, this is a donation, you know, as long as we continue with the seedling program, and when the ones we're growing are done, the material belongs to us. So they have no interest in the material, they have no interest in the land or the trees, or that's, you know, just to explain what the deal is. So
Will that 500 feet of wire be cut into appropriate lengths before the 14th?
no, it will be, they explained, you know, this isn't their first rodeo, and I'm thinking, because I've done this, you know, cut a dozen pieces of wire that you have laid out in the grass and the weeds. that wants to go back to its round shape, and so you need a couple people to stand on it. What they do, they have a 12-foot utility trailer. They lay the wire right in the trailer, nice and flat, hold it down, cut it, and then they have about 1.5 feet of overlap. So a piece of wire for a 4-foot cage is going to be, 13 plus feet. And then they hold it together with wire ties rather than trying to use the cut wire ends. And the reason they do that is when you do your maintenance once, twice a year, check your weed, it's easiest just to take the cage off. And it's a lot easier to cut wire ties than it is to, try to unwind this wire. So, that's a good tip. They have done this before. So, I think we can learn a lot.
What did they think of the signage that's up there at night scene?
I'm sorry, I couldn't,
You have to be on microphone. You have to be on microphone.
Did they like the signs?
The interpretive signs.
yes. We have 2 of 3 in place, and we will have the 3rd one hopefully in place by the time they arrive. So that's, a brief explanation of what we're doing there, and, they seem to look pretty nice. So that's good. So just quickly, Mark, you're going to be away. And Jim, you're going to be away. And Dave's going to be here.
I'll be here
Okay, we're counting on you, man.
on the 14th, 8 a.m.
Okay, I'll be here. Mike?
Yep.
Okay. Are you up for? Sure. Okay. This is varying levels of physical work. We've had all the holes drilled, so we're not going to be digging holes, which is good. So it's basically, I haven't looked at them, but when they did them before, you got the hole that they made big, and then you're probably going to have some rocks laying around. So you're going to have a lack of soil. And we're getting a truckload at each location of compost. So we'll have some good black soil to add to it, mix. DPW is also bringing us 2 loads, 1 for each location, of wood chips. So that will be our mulch. And the Vermont, New Hampshire chapter is bringing us matting material. They cut mats more like 3-foot square. We were doing them maybe 18 inches square. So they should be bigger, especially as the tree gets bigger. So we have some stuff to do. We have the posts, we have a fence post pounder, which is a wonderful tool. And, hopefully we're going to have a good day. They're very organized and very dedicated, and they seem to like to enjoy themselves. So afterwards, they're hosting a barbecue for all the people. So we will do that. And I think we're going to start at 8, hopefully finish maybe around 11:30, go do our barbecue. Hopefully it's going to be a little nicer day than it is today. We're talking about doing this at Elkins Beach for a number of reasons. And, it's less than a mile away, so it's pretty convenient. And take it from there.
Do they have a contingency in case there's really bad weather?
Umbrellas, raincoats.
Oh, okay, so it's rain or shine?
Again, I didn't want to interfere because they seem to have these things all organized, but it seemed to me, I was told that some of the spouses come more to help with the barbecue. And I'm thinking, you're going to be 4 hours without a bathroom, so it'd be nice if we went someplace. And then, I don't know about shelter in Elkins. Are there shelters there? There's picnic tables. and a grill.
Not really, and you have to make arrangements, like, I guess with the police, to have the bathrooms unlocked, because that's.
Well, I'm talking to Putnam about that, because I think they officially close Labor Day.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm sure we can, you know, if it's a nice day, there could be a lot of people there, so, even though
No,
they're,
there is no real shelter there.
okay. Okay. So, yes,
You mentioned mulch and wood chips.
can you just turn that on?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if, you mentioned wood chips and mulch for planting, is there going to be water on site or both sites? Because, you know.
Well, that's an interesting question. You know, when I go back and read the Pennsylvania chapter's documentation, they get some good stuff on how to plant and so forth. And they recommend a gallon of water when you plant them. That wasn't in the directions, but that's what we've always done. And then given them another gallon, like on a weekly basis. So to answer your question, yes, I will have a number of milk jugs with water in them. Because it seems like they have a tough enough start without not having any water. And that seemed to make a difference. Okay, well, that sounds real good. So we're going to be working at Site 1 and Site 2, which is Clark Lookout. And the meeting place will be at Park and Ride. And so we're going to do at Clark Lookout primarily recaging, rematting. At last check, and there's roughly 30 seedlings there, they're all alive. Some are struggling, but we have some that are 6 feet or more high. But there are several that need new cages. And of course the posts and the mat. So I hope that'll go quickly if we have a good turnout. But I think their plan is, and I'm really going to leave this up to them, if we have a big turnout, I think they may split into 2 groups, because we don't need 20 people all trying to build a cage, you know. So I think half of them would go back to, get down to Shaker Street, Site 2, and there's only 12 existing seedlings there. They need to be rematted, recaged, and then there are 20 holes. And we have 20 seedlings that actually look pretty good. They're a foot or so high, a lot of growth on them in the 12-inch pots. We'll have soil, and hopefully that'll go pretty well. But I thought we'd kind of leave it up to them, you know, how they want to split people up. What else?
So Bob, before we leave this, you want me to solicit from the trail worker roster?
Yeah, I mean, if we could get 2, 3 people, that would be great.
Yeah. And wheelbarrows, shovels?
Yeah, I asked the president, Evan Fox, about that. What do we need for tools? I'm sure they're going to have a lot, but if we're going to be in 2 groups, then... So I have a wheelbarrow, a 2-wheeled wheelbarrow. You know, we could probably use a couple of those. I have wire cutters, some shears to cut the matting. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm assuming it's a permeable woven type of mat as opposed to solid plastic. And then, you know, shovels, rake, that type of stuff. So it'd be good to have a few of those. And he will be sending us messages as we get closer. We need to be sure to send them a good head count so they can, and then, you know, I offered to, what can we do to help here? And I don't know, they kind of had everything covered, but maybe we could provide drinks and that type of stuff, water, and then something for lunchtime. And then we won't be working at the Low Plains site number 3. That'll be next year. And Dawn went down and looked at anything that was really in urgent need, and it looks like most everything can go another year.
At Low Plains, I put 9 new cages, so everything in Low Plains now is either 4 feet or 3 feet, so it should
Oh,
be,
great, great.
should be good for a year.
Because we had some secondhand chicken wire that wasn't doing too well there.
Yeah, the big issue was anything that was 2 feet high or 3 feet high, and if the trees had gotten above it, they had been browsed by deer.
Right.
So I pretty much got it so now that everything is below the wire.
Perfect.
So there's 4 feet, and then what I did with some of the old cages is just double them up, stack them on top
Yeah.
of each other. And so Low Plains should be all set for another year.
Perfect, thank you. We can talk about it as we get a week away, but we may want to take a look at Clark Lookout and maybe try to do a little more mowing, you know, because that's rough. That's really not grass. It's, you know, it's like bushes, just to ease walking and travel. We'll have to see how that shakes out.
I did mow in there last week, but I will go in before the 14th and do it one
Yeah.
more time.
We did have them mow at Shaker Street, and he used, you know, the big zero-turn lawnmower as opposed to the brush hog, and that did a much finer job. And I asked him about that when he cuts this fall, maybe that would be, because it chopped everything down. And, you know, and it, boy, what was he, 15 minutes? I mean, it just went really fast. We didn't do the whole field, but we did where we were gonna work, and then enough, made some aisles and so forth. Over at Clark Lookout, there are parts of that field that are really rocky, and I suspect he would be concerned about taking a lawnmower in there, but, you know, we can cross that bridge when we come to it. It is difficult. What you've mowed makes a huge difference. I went over during the dry spell and watered everything twice, and just walking around carrying the jugs, I mean, you gotta really pick your feet up. And where we mowed, there was some ragweed and whatever that was, you know, chest high. So you can't work and stuff like that, so we figured it would be worth having it mowed. But that'd be good. Okay. So the holes are drilled, we're ready to go. Thank you, Mark, again for helping lay out the new holes. We drilled a couple of holes for a sign, so we'll get those posts in. We have the Site 2 sign all made, ready to go up, and then we'll put up that panel. At the new location, we kind of decided to leave what's there out close to the road there rather than moving it, because then you can't see it from the road. So the only difficulty we had, we figured while he's there drilling, let's put in a couple of posts for a gate. Someday we may want a gate. But he hit ledge. So we got to work on a plan B there. I don't think that's a high priority, but they drill those holes so fast. And you think about doing it with a post hole digger, boy, it's great. Okay. Do you want to talk about the junior trail patch program, Mike?
Yeah, we really haven't gotten anything on the new patch yet. I sent some information, or asked for some information from Putnam. Last time we talked, he said he had an example of something he thought would work for creating the new patch, but he's yet to get back to me with a picture of that. And I sent him an email recently and hasn't responded yet, so I don't know if he's around or not. He wasn't around when I called the other day. So that's still a work in progress, but that being said, the website has the new forms on there. So if somebody goes on the website, information is there, they can download the form. It has the limited list for juniors for the trails that they have to visit as opposed to the adults, and it's ready to go, so people can use it. We haven't gotten in anything yet, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to get that logo established, and then once we get that done, we can start advertising it again with that logo and then decide what we want to do, whether we want to do a patch or a sticker or a mug or a certificate or whatever we want to give out to kids that would be most attractive, and kind of go from there. So it's really hinging on getting the logo, but that's still a work in progress.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. Invasives. Don, do you want to give us an update specifically on Low Plain? And then we can talk about in more general terms.
Sure. On Low Plains, I think Anna and the two Colby Sawyer students gave a kind of a overview of the work that we did. We haven't done a lot since then. The only thing we have done is go back in and do a one-time cut down of all of, well, I'm not gonna say all, but a good portion of what remained of the knotweed. The thought process being is to get that stuff cut before it flowers this year, to prevent it from flowering and maybe curb the spread a little bit. We've been up a few times, mowed around the area, just monitoring. I mean, that's going to kind of be an ongoing thing for the next few years. But the last thing we did was get all of the remaining wood chips moved up to the site so that we have some for next year, and we'll just continue to monitor. And I think we talked about last time we were here that we're going to need to at some point dispose of the stalks that we have covered and decaying there. But that activity, I think, as far as the students at Colby Sawyer, is finished at this point.
Okay. While we're on the subject of invasives, you had talked about the training that's coming up, and is that being done by or conducted by Extension Service?
That's correct.
Okay, I thought so, okay. As I mentioned, it would be wonderful to have that knowledge, experience, and so forth. Our only concern is we just want to make sure that town administrator, the selectmen, and probably DPW are on board. And, you know, if we decide we're going to do something like this, it would be nice to do it together. And it would seem like somebody from DPW might want to be involved, because a lot of that, you know, is on their territory.
Sure.
So I just want to make sure we're not going off in a direction that they're not supportive of, you know. But I think it's great. We've talked about when it gets to the point of using chemicals, then there's a lot of advice and a lot of strong feelings and so forth.
Yeah, that has not gone well anywhere in terms of towns who are trying to use chemicals.
Yeah.
That's just asking for trouble.
I'll try to set something up with Kim and just, you know, let them know what we're thinking about and see what their reaction is. Okay?
I have a question on that.
Yes.
Well, first, Don, thank you for your willingness to do this. Would you think the chemical treatments will be specific to knotweed, or do you think there'll be education on, you know, other invasives?
These are general pesticide, herbicide training courses, so they cover a lot of topics. They talk about tick control, they talk about invasives control, they talk about you know, best practices for how to do it, where to do it, when not to do it. They talk about, you know, rules and regulations that the state has. There are different levels of training that you can get. The 2 courses that I was looking at are just a basic core training that gives you some of the basic principles, rules, regulations, equipment, you know, that type of thing, safety-based. And then the other one is one specific to right-of-way training, which is specifically for people who are, I think it's geared towards, they don't say it, but geared towards people like us who are on conservation commissions, who are doing some of the work in conjunction with trails, with, you know, conservation land, that sort of thing. So that level of training. And so both of those are basic introductory courses. They are 8 hours each, both of those 2 courses. They also offer, which I think they only offer in the spring, which is a full licensed certification program, which if you were a commercial applicator and you wanted to go out and do this as a business, that's what you need, right? At the end of it, you take an exam, you get a license. I assume there's fees associated with it, et cetera. But that's not what this is. Did that answer your question? And it's all through the extent. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Parcel number 088006 is the parcel adjacent to Low Plain that we have had under agreement to purchase for over 3 years now. It's probably the most frustrating project we have ever had. However, and we keep hearing that we're making progress, but without specifics. And at the last meeting, a motion was made and approved that we would ask the town administrator to contact the town attorney and really get a written status report, other than, yeah, we're working on it and we're getting close. We've been hearing that for 3 years. It appears that the owner, I don't know why, just hasn't been pushing their attorney to do this. And the problem is the deed wasn't clean. There was an error in the deed, and this property transferred within a family, apparently no purchase involved. And so it looked like the normal legal clearance work was very minimal, if at all. So long story short, we did get sort of a written status. And it's very complicated, and we've been through this so many times, I won't go through it again, but we have a situation where the parcel, the original parcel was split 50 plus years ago when the so-called new Route 11 went in. It left 2 parcels. A forested parcel on Low Plain side, a house lot on Pleasant Lake side in Elkins. Unfortunately, the description of the deed for both parcels was exactly the same. So that didn't work out. And complicated by the homeowner has an out-of-state mortgage with an internet lender. So the communication has been difficult. But it appears now that everyone is on board, and the 2 property owners have agreed, I don't think it's in writing yet, that neither has any interest in the other's property. And what is most significant is a lot plan was discovered quite by accident that is a survey of what the lot should be, but it was never recorded. But it's an electronic copy, and we checked, it was done, I don't know, 40 years ago. Never recorded, but the surveyor had it electronically. So the lawyers are now saying that if they take that and clean it up, and I mean, all the pins are shown, I mean, it's a survey. That should suffice as a description. So with that, when that gets reissued, it can be recorded. The 2 present owners can agree that, yes, this is it, and a deed can be created, and then we can close. So I'm not sure it's quite time to celebrate, but it looks better than it's looked in nearly 3.5 years, but we're trying to establish a closing date. So that's such an important parcel. It's only 23 acres, but it connects another 30 acres that the town already owns that isn't truly contiguous with Low Plain. So this will add 54 acres to the existing 200. So, and it's, a lot of it's prime wetland, ski trails, so that's that one. I know it's been a long process, but let's hope we have success. Okay, Bog Road Wetlands, AKA Clark Creek, parcel number 119-002. Do you want to talk about your latest visit, Jim?
Sure, what was it, maybe 10 days ago? I went in, kind of at Bob's encouragement, with the waders, and I walked in the trail until I got to the first bench, and then I took a left into the wetlands. And I got out to what we have always described as Beaver Dam Site number 1, and there was nothing there. So there was no rebuilding at that site, but it was too deep. You might recall, Mark, when you and I went in there in March, it was about the same depth. So I toyed with trying to cross the creek in the waders to get to the other side, but it was just too deep and the bottom was too soft, so I just turned around and came out. But the water was higher than it was back in April and May. So my suspicion is Site 2 or 3 or 4 has been rebuilt and it's holding water back.
Right.
So.
Well, the other thing that's happened is we have installed our own water depth gauge because the 2 that were there, well, I guess the Protective Association believes they have moved. And they never had a reference point to 0. And the tall 6.2, 6.6 gauge was actually lower than the 3.3 foot gauge. And I can't explain that, but they have a lot of data based on that, but it seemed to us like what we really want to know is what's going on in the culvert, how much water's going through, and the depth. So we put in a new gauge, and I thank Jim and Rob for that. Its 0 point is referenced to the bottom of the culvert. So if you get a 0 reading, then technically there's no water in the
We're
culvert.
off a little bit.
Yeah, well, we had a little problem with the inches and the tenths of a foot.
Yeah,
but it's
exactly.
pretty close. Yeah. We were at, what, 5.5 when we set the gauge?
Yeah, the goof we made when we set the gauge is we measured 5.5 inches.
Right.
And we set the gauge at 0.55 feet, which is more like 6.6 inches. So
Yeah.
we're off by about an inch.
Yeah, so, but I think it's more accurate than it was. 'cause
And we can check it each spring after the ice might have moved it.
Yeah. So that looks good. We had an increase with the rain a couple of weeks ago. It went up to almost 0.9. And then this morning, I looked at it with the rain. And, you know, we have this map, if anyone wants one, of the Mesa Pond watershed, which is huge, many times the size of the pond. And when there's rain, obviously it goes into the pond, but once the ground is saturated, you know, that water is going to flow, and there's a lot of different tributaries coming in, and only one 4-foot culvert going out. So it doesn't recover quickly. It could take days, but it was up to just under 1 this morning. So, you know, like 0.95, something like that. So I think that will go down. But really, looking at what's going on in the pond, earlier when it was down, we saw rocks we hadn't seen in 10, 15 years. I mean, the water was really low. Early in the spring, as you know, it was up over 2 feet. So it's way down. And I think it's from a landowner, resident there, I think it's at a pretty acceptable level right now, around a foot. But the water, when you watch it this morning, it was barely moving. You know, it's going to take a leaf, 20 seconds or so to go, or maybe even a little longer to go through the culvert. It's not rushing. And it was moving faster when it was at 5. So you're right. I mean, something in there. And that's something I think we need to get looked at.
But Bob, the calculations we've done on flow rate and things like that, as long as a leaf or a stick moves through the culvert in less than a minute, you've got plenty of flow. It's flushing the pond at least once a year, which is fine for the health of the pond. So that doesn't look very fast, and it's almost so slow you can't see it. So you almost have to go get a little stick and throw it in and start your watch and walk over to the other side
Because
of the pond.
before you could sort of see a ripple in the water, but now it looks perfectly flat. So
Right, but in the spring, we had times where it was 15 seconds to get across the 50 feet.
Right.
It was really flowing fast, and
So-
one doesn't need that to be healthy.
Just as a side note, we have one of the Protective Association members who's, really been watching this, and he's gone in and moved materials, whether they're animal-related or just natural vegetation growth. And he's done a lot of work in there, which is appreciated. But they seem to have this thing, this project of dredging the creek. And I don't understand why. I mean, that isn't going to make, there's sand, some of it is, washed off from the road, there's some logs in there, but they're well underwater. And we explained to them, this is town land. It's under a conservation easement. So, they can ask all the questions they want, but they have no authority to, hire a contractor or something. I don't know what DES would have to say, but, the first question is, do we really need to do this? So I think now it seems like, and, chime in, but we're kind of at a continuation of, let's watch what's going on. And sure, we can go in and see if there is recent building activity and deal with that. But it doesn't seem like there's a need to get some excavation company in there to dig the place up. I don't know what that would gain.
Bob, just a comment. Until a year ago, we never talked about Messer Pond or its problems as a commission. And now we're talking about it all the time, and several members have put in significant time at Messer Pond. Mm-hmm. And to me, it seems as though we're trying to correct acts of nature. And so I have to wonder, is Messer Pond going to be a burden to us forever in terms of?
Well, it shouldn't be. I mean, we kind of went through a similar thing at Kidder Cleveland Clough. We were years working on that. We finally put in a caster master, and I don't know, we were in there, at least once a week, in some cases more frequently, and that was very, very difficult.
But we were doing that for our purposes to preserve a trail, an important trail.
It was largely due to residential complaints, flooding, odor. It was a big, big deal at that time. And it still sometimes doesn't smell so great in there. But, it is what it is. It's really wet. We have talked about this, the whole wisdom of, why are we doing this? And what we're being told is there is an RSA that says this is our responsibility to manage. Of course, now the question comes, what's the definition of manage?
Yeah, what does manage mean? But it just seems like this is, in one way or another, this could go on forever
Well,
as a management issue.
I would hope not. I think now we know we're going to have to get in there to do a little maintenance, and hopefully that's minor. It's very unusual, but at Kidder Cleveland Clough, the animals went away. I mean, that doesn't happen very often because they're pretty persistent, but I guess they just said, enough is enough, we'll go someplace where it's easier to live. But, I think everybody's aware of that. We're certainly aware of cost, budget, but it is impacting the pond. And I guess just like milfoil, we need to keep an eye on it. But let's see. I mean, I don't think, we talked about a big dollar number of actually getting that stuff cleared out. And we never spent that. A lot of it was volunteer. The contractor we did get to go in there, it was manual work, really didn't charge us much at all. I was surprised. I mean, he donated a lot of his time, and that made a big difference.
But I think it would be good to have a clarification of what does manage mean?
Yep.
What are our ongoing responsibilities there?
Yeah, well, we can do that. But, right now, when we talk about next year's budget, we got to think about this, managing wetlands and so forth. We've always put in a little bit of money, but, we thought it might be $10,000 or so, and it wasn't. So that's the good news. But a lot of personal time and effort was put in. That's true. Good. So our service provider is supposed to go in either the end of this week or next week and give us an update, take some photos, tell us really what's going on in there, and then we can decide what we need to do. A lot of times he goes in, dismantles what was built, but we know in a day or so it's all back. So we might have to do something a little more permanent, but we'll keep you posted. Don did install the Clark Pond Natural Area sign right on Bog Road, just south of the culvert, and that looks good. We do have a Messer Pond Natural Area sign to put out on County Road. The problem is the edge of the road drops off very quickly, and we asked Sam, DPW director, to take a look at that when it was convenient and offer a suggestion. We don't want to put it so close to the road that it's in the way of plowing. So do we go in, put it on longer posts, or we can put in a little fill? I don't know. He's going to offer some thoughts, but that's a project, but it's not a high priority. But so we'll get that done.
Bob, quick comment. Have you noticed that probably DPW came in and has corrected the problem on the Clark side of Bog Road? Where it was
Yes, they put in a
sloped
header.
down and a lot of water was running in. They've put some granite in there and they've backfilled. It really looks good.
They put a header in, which they're now doing. Culverts they're replacing now, they seem to be making longer. When they put the ones in on Forest Acres Road, I mean, they added 3 or 4 feet, because before it ended right at the edge of the road, so gravel was constantly, or when they plowed, you could see the sand in the brook. And they put some seed down, so that hopefully will help. On that subject. There were a lot of calls, I got a couple of calls, but a lot of calls to the town about the pool water truck pumping water out of the pond.
I just got an email from Ethan last night on that.
Yeah, well, the pool water guy, I talked to him a couple of times. There's no real permitting process that we could find, either town or state. And what he was doing, he wasn't using the fire department standpipe. That's what was thought originally. He had his own portable pump. His truck holds 3,000 gallons. He's filling an enormous swimming pool that he did maintenance on up on Maple Lane. And yesterday he said he was going to do 8 loads, which was on top of about 20 that he's already done. So this is a huge pool. But, I mean, he seemed okay. I don't think he was doing anything wrong. I did ask him if when he breaks his supply line that connects to the truck, if he could do it out on the pavement, because he was doing it on the side of the road and the gravel was washing into the pond, and he was fine with that. So, you know, I don't know, it didn't seem like he was.
Yeah,
My biggest concern was, and we talked to him, one of the Protective Association people came by, and my concern is if he's pumping out of various ponds, where's he pumping out of? And, you know, is there stuff in his hose from the last place that might end up in our, you know? And so he told us where he was, and he cleans everything very carefully, but, so.
Yeah, I looked on the DES website, and unless you're pulling huge quantities of water, you don't need a permit from DES to do it.
Yeah. And that's interesting there, because he's on the road, which is town property. He's pumping out of the pond, which is state property, and there's a thin strip of private land that runs through there between the road and the pond. So there's 3 different owners involved. So hopefully that's quieted down. Mark, do you want to talk about trail projects and what you have planned for, well, this was after our last meeting, but you had the July 26th Hypotherm Day. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
That went well. Yeah, I think in addition to that, Dawn put up a railing. Yeah, the project went well. The Lionbrook aluminum bridge went well, and Dawn led a team to add a railing to a bridge that we had done last year at Lionbrook. So that stretch of the trail is in, you know, as good shape as it's been in a while.
Okay,
And
good.
the Hypertherm guys were great, and they said, you know, when's your next date? We like this better than a lot of the other community service projects that we do, so.
Did we send a letter to that program director at
Well,
Hypotherm?
I sent an email to them.
Okay. Maybe the next project, we should send a letter, you know, something they could post.
I can do that.
You know, if you don't mind doing that.
Yeah.
And we're scheduled for the 13th of September?
The 13th of September, I put in another solicitation to Hypertherm, and that'll be working at the bog with wood chips and maybe some wooden structures to finish off that wooded section of the trail.
And perhaps move some lumber.
Yeah, depending on the timing of the lumber delivery.
Yeah, we've got to work on that. We want to get another order of lumber delivered right to the bog, and then, of course, it has to be transported in. There were some creative wheeled devices last time that seemed to help, and I guess the fact that we have more stable walkway makes it a little easier than it is, that first few trips in there. But, yeah, I mean, Hypotherm has worked out to be a tremendous supporter. Reliable, hard workers, experienced, and that's great. And you ended up with 6 or 8?
I think we had 8.
8, yeah.
Plus
That's a good size work
Some of
group.
us, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for doing that.
Just one other thing, Don is working on Tom Conway Tree Service to get some chips delivered, and I forgot your yardage estimate. Is it 80 yards or?
No, not that
Oh.
much. 30 yards, I think, would get us a really good base all the way out. I suggest if we're doing 1 day's worth, trying to get it off the road in 1 day, I would say probably let's do 20 yards, maybe 2 loads. I think we can do that. So that's what I'm going to ask him for to start. And if we decide that we want to add a little bit more later, we can do it as a separate work day, I think.
And can you, 20 yards, how big a pile, I guess I'm concerned about, blocking the road. How big an obstruction do you think that'll?
So you know the pile that we created at Low Plains?
Yeah, I don't know if I ever saw that, and
Okay.
it's,
Geez, I mean, a yard is 20.
What does he have, 12-yard truck?
I thought that he was delivering 10 to 12 yard pile.
Okay.
So
That-
maybe two-
So that's,
That's a big
It'll be fine, Mark. We can put it to the right if you look at, where the stairs are.
Yeah.
Definitely to that area that we have to the left, we could put a couple of piles there. They would fit,
okay.
that's,
no problem.
would you say a 10, 12-foot diameter pile?
Sure.
Yeah,
That's probably,
yeah.
maybe a little bigger, but.
yeah. As long as we don't dump it into the wet, keep it up on the gravel, and of course, out of the road, but, yeah, that should be fine.
If Tom is, if I'm going to get them from Tom, I'll work at getting them from someone as long as we have the date confirmed. I'll block off something with some
Yeah.
yellow tape or something for him and show him where we would like it.
We might be able to borrow some cones from DPW, traffic cones to mark out the spot,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so if we're good on the 13th, Mark, I will reach out and see if we can get the wood chips, and I'd like to get those sometime closer to that date.
We're good. I mean, I may not hear from Hypertherm as to how many they have until a few days in advance, so, but I think we should go with it.
If we can get the lumber before that date, it would be preferred, just so that we have it, we can start to do some of the work. I don't know if we can.
I'm working on that. Let me see if we can, the process, the PO, we gotta get the check and so forth, but
And
I'll
we're
work
in
on,
line that, the 2x8s will get delivered to the bog, the 2x4s to the shop.
so you don't want any 2x4s at the, okay,
A handful of 2x4s that I would need for, doing
Okay.
the case. I mean, I can bring over, I might need a half dozen.
once again, how many 2x4s for the railing?
Let's do 40 2x4s and 40 4x8s.
40,
2x8s, excuse me. Yeah,
40 of each,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, that's, for what we discussed when we were there, that should give us plenty.
okay. So only 40 of them have to be carried in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the
okay.
40 2x8s need to
Okay.
be carried.
Question for you, Dawn. Mark and I were discussing access. We now have an aluminum walkway a lot of the distance from Newport Road, but then you still got some rough terrain to go over. And when we walked through that trail in some of the rocky places, I looked up and I could see the roof line of buildings at Fenwood. Is there any access from Fenwood? I mean, it's a rough path through the woods, but I mean, it looked pretty close, if you could get to that area. I was just curious.
There is, and Mark, you can chime in, but there is currently nothing from Fenwood. There is a path that goes out the back of Fenwood, the bog area, but we would have to cut a trail if we wanted to give direct access to Fenwood. There is nothing there right now.
I
As
agree.
far as I know, I've never found anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's that lovely, right of way all the way down to
Down
Pine
to
Hill.
Pine Hill,
Yeah, but
Yeah, but we'd have to build, a spur off that would come into the bog.
there is a rogue trail there, but it's pretty rough and it would need work to make it usable.
So, I mean, is that worth pursuing or not?
Well, we have talked about that in the past. It all depends if we want to have a back entrance into the bog. So certainly it could be built. And if we did that, then that would provide access to the folks at Highland Ridge also, because there is that right of way that Mark was talking about that goes.
Well, that was the other thing. I wonder if is that on their land?
Oh, gosh, I looked at the map one time. The town, yes, it is not all town land.
Okay. So,
You mean the right of way itself is not on?
No, I'm talking about if we did any of the paths. It isn't all town land. all the way
That's
over.
true. Although there is that Fenwood buffer has an easement.
the easement,
It
yeah.
would be largely on the easement piece of it.
I wondered if it would be of any interest to them to have a trail. You know?
Well, as you may remember, Ruth White was opposed to, she sort of thought it as a backdoor access to the bog, and she was opposed to that.
I mean, I wouldn't think people would go to Fenwood to get into the bog. And I guess a lot of it would be what they feel, what their opinion is, whether they saw that as positive or negative.
I suppose we could cut a route that would, and then block it off. It wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean
Yeah.
that we're establishing a permanent trail.
Do you know anybody there you could just ask?
I know one resident there, yeah.
Okay, it might just be worth asking the question.
I
They
can-
may be opposed to it.
Didn't we have something from the president of their association at some point? Pretty sure we had a dialogue with them about
Yeah.
the easement, so I can try to find her
And we had a
name.
couple people there make donations.
Yeah, so I'll look and see. I think I have the name of the president someplace. And
Okay.
I'll see if I can find that.
Okay.
Because I guess the thing is, it's kind of a two-way street. One would be their people having access to the bog, but then the other thing would be, would they want people that would be doing the trail system getting into their area? You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying.
So I'll see if I can find her name for you.
Was Ruth White's concern having to do with access points? Just, if she didn't want any other entrances to the bog, I wonder what her concern was.
I think it was that, sort of control and knowledge of who's using it.
Yep.
Well, see what they say. If they're really opposed to it, then, but they might see it as a positive thing. Okay. All right, well, so should we talk about Low Plain and wildflowers and other related things?
Hey,
Yes, now? Oops. When I sit, I get creepy for a minute.
Is that still on, Dawn, or not? It is? Okay.
Hello, hello. Everybody hear me? Well enough? Well, I just wanted to say I've missed you all. A lot of things have come up that I didn't get back here for many of your meetings, which I missed. I did come for one and found that you had shifted it, and it had happened the day before, the one I really made a point of getting to. Anyway, wanted to give you a quick update. I have felt I needed to withdraw from working with Mark on the Clark Pond plant identification. I would point out that I think that has challenges with plants being spotted and moving, and do you take the signs in or out? But our big success was, I suggested we try IDing, putting an ID tag on trees up at eye level. The trees don't move. They're a good way of IDing it. And Mark implemented it by making all these wonderful trail marker tags, and we're getting the signs on the trees, and I think that's very successful. We also had the idea of concentrating the information, plant information area at the beginning of how most people take the hike. So that would prime them for keeping things, looking out for things as they hiked along. But I can't manage that anymore. Sorry, Mark, I've put it all back in your hands. I'm just too slow at this point. However, the wildflower site at Low Plains is coming along. I went very early. I've visited on and off during the spring and summer. And I went quite early, and nothing was there yet, so I went back a little later. And I'm happy to say that there was one thing I had to wait for it to bloom to be sure what it was, but we now have everything on my list of top 10 good things for pollinators is planted. And they are starting to, some of it is self-seeding like gangbusters, and some of it is slower and will increase as time goes along. The one thing I've had trouble with, I'm trying to establish a milkweed patch in a slightly separate area. And spring after spring, it just didn't show up again. This spring, there was one milkweed plant. It's still there. And Mark says he's had similar problems with milkweed, that for some reason it's not happy in that site. So I finally decided I should stop fighting nature, and I'm going to see if I can locate another little area to get a patch going. The soils there are thin. It's ledgy underneath. They're kind of dry. What was very successful is, with Dawn's help, we moved several barrow loads of the nice compost into the primary mixed flower area and then planted in that soil, and those ones are doing very well. Unfortunately, also doing very well is a weed of which I do not know the name of it, very aggressive, and it's very happy on the tarp-covered mulch pile. Brilliant idea to put a tarp over the mulch pile to reduce the area that the weeds can come. That wildflower area, the wildflower pollinator site, it is not a garden, it is a site. However, what's needed now is pruning and weeding. So the wood chips on the paths are looking very good in helping keep that down. Mowing helps keep it looking nice and neat. And that's something that I can, go in from time to time. Don't need a lot of planting at this point. If I find something interesting, we might add it. I did find a couple of things just to note. The mode access is good. For a while there was a strange, odd little wheelbarrow hidden at the gate, and I used that. It's a longish walk to walk up to the site, and was able to use that. That has now disappeared, but it's been replaced by a very nice, very practical little wheelbarrow. It's tucked in behind the compost pile, not easy to get in and out. And if I'm bringing something, tools or plants, from the parking area at the base of that area. That's a long walk to go up and get the wheelbarrow and then bring it back to the gate. And we work around that, but it's a little hard work. The benches are a lovely idea and nicely placed. And Mike, I'm sure you're the one who decided where those would be placed. It's nice they've set their back to an area where we really don't want people to go back into that old logging area round behind. So I like their location, and I think they add to the site. I would say that next spring, next year, I actually a couple of years ago bought some sign materials, eagerly anticipating that was going to be done sooner. I think next year I could put up some of my educational signs that I'd like to plant in the area. Up to then, I've spent, maybe $10 of my money on some sign materials. All the plants have been either dug from around town or from Friends of Gardens, and a real success was Don dug from his garden 2 or 3 years ago, a nice bee-balm monarda, and that has now started really spreading very nicely, which is doing just what we want it to do. Let's see, any other? After the tarp on the, I can't say how many times I visited over the last couple of years where the compost pile had this magnificent growth of variety of weeds, and I would weed them out and to make the pile look tidy and neater. And then, of course, they would pop up all over again. Don put a tarp over it, which suppressed the weeds, but it's easy to flip it back to get mulch if you need it to wheelbarrow at different spots. You've stabilized the tarp with a couple of big rough logs that I don't think look as aesthetic as could be, but after you plant the new chestnut seedlings and rework the cages and all of that, when that's all done and in place, perhaps we could level the remaining piles and, I don't know, plant it to grass or just see what nature fills in with. And then that whole walking up and around to the beautiful big chestnut information sign would be all tied together and look well. So I'm continuing to monitor and weed. I'm getting to the point with there's a whole cluster of white pine seedlings that I have not attended to, and they're about this high now. I can't pull them out anymore. They're going to have to be clipped, which I'm happy to do. So any questions about this? I think it is doing what I hoped it would do, and when there's a sign directing people to think and understand about what's going on there, I think it will be an addition to that little focal area. Questions or comments?
Do you need any help
Yes.
immediately? Like, is there some project that you need?
No, as I say, it's just a weeding. What I'm accumulating is a few piles of weeded material that needs to be moved off somewhere else. The little wheelbarrow could be pulled out for that. But I'd like to be able to maybe call Don a couple of times and say, hey, it's a beautiful day today. I'm feeling pretty perky. Can you spare an hour this morning, and we'll do a little bit more clearing and so forth, if that's agreeable.
Sure, it's okay by me. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that sounds great. Appreciate your interest and effort.
Happy to
I know
involved
it takes a
with
while.
Well, it's taken, I did say at the beginning that it would be, 2 or 3 years to
Right.
sort of start self-sowing. And there's some wonderful material that's there, and, that's an added bonus to our list of good stuff. But anyway, I think it's coming along, and
So
at
your
this
plan
point-
then would be to put signage up maybe next year or this year?
No, I think next year.
Next year?
I mean, some of the plants, the oxeye daisy has gone gung-ho and seeded itself in a number of different spots. And on the other hand, finally this year, I have one coneflower that's I had to wait to see it bloom to be sure what it was. So some are coming along further than others, but I think it's still interesting to look at right now. I'd love to, lead a guided tour sometime one day in the future, but signs maybe next year. And what I got are those wire frames that stick in the ground, and it's kind of white plastic, and you get a sign company to make text that you stick on it. They'd be weatherproof and easily in and out, moved in and out. But that's for next year, I think. Because you're going to be getting the chestnut seedlings in this season, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's work that, and I have a lot of little blue flags kind of protecting the area or indicating the area that, do not dump a mountain of wood chips here, kind of thing. And thanks for mowing the access going in, if I'm wheelbarrowing in there. Maybe someday I'll get a key to the gate.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Peg, for all your hard work.
Peg, one question, thank you. Is there any sign at the parking area that tells people about the pollinator garden?
No.
What, next year will there be? Is that part of your plan?
Well,
Not from the parking lot. We don't want to do it from the parking lot. We wanted to do it off of the trail that goes up to the lookout.
So we don't
So
want...
the overlook has a spur that says the Chestnut Loop,
Right.
and that's where we want people to access it. We don't want people going up the logging road, if you will.
So at,
people do anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure they are, but we don't want to encourage it. So when the mapping is redone, that loop will be added to the mapping, which shows it coming off of the overlook, and it's going to be a separate, well, the signage there already, so if people go up there, they'll see signage to go out to the Chestnut Loop,
okay,
but we don't want people going from the parking lot.
okay.
They do, but we're not going to invite them. But eventually the signs off Davis Path, about, 100 feet in from the wooden bar gate, there's signs saying Chestnut Loop and Overlook, and possibly one could add a sign saying Wildflower Site or something at that point. Originally, the Chestnut Loop was proposed by me to touch back at the parking lot and Davis Path. There was going either way, and the interest things were sort of in the middle, the overlook and the Chestnut Nursery and the Wildflower Site. But I know, Mike, you've been reluctant to have people be in that stretch of land from, say, the nursery site down to the parking lot.
Yeah, we don't want people using that. That's not the intent. In other words, the main trail starts at the kiosk. People should start there, go in, and then branch off accordingly. And that's how it should be done, rather than having two entrances, which is not a good idea.
Okay. Thank you. New business. One thing, Adam contacted me regarding CIP and capital improvements funding. And last year, I think we were a little confused because on that request sheet, and they're looking for a 10-year plan. We put down land acquisition fund, and I guess that's not what it's for. It's for a true capital improvement project, and I'm not sure we really have one. Anyone? You know, we had talked about maybe, and I don't know whether this isn't a capital improvement, but for wetlands management. But as it turns out, you know, we didn't need all that money. So I guess I need to talk to Kim about that a little bit. But any big project needs that anyone can think of?
I do think you'll need to put some work into Kidder Cleveland Clough next year. The lumber in there and the bridges in there are getting pretty, so what I'm getting at is there may be a bit of lumber expense. If you want to call that a capital expense, I don't know.
Now, that normally goes into our operating budget, you know, for materials. You know, unless it's huge, you know, something like the bog, you know, we came out with a fundraising program and so on.
I'm just thinking you may need a bit of lumber if you decide
Yeah,
to address that
yeah.
place, because it's, the whole thing is, do you agree, Mark?
I do.
Everything
Yeah.
in there is getting to the end of life, and there's a lot
Yeah.
of lumber in there. Just, it may not be next year, but in the next few years, just something. to
Right.
think about.
Okay. Anything else?
One old business, the technical assistance grant
Yes.
for the bog. Just to remind everybody, our plan is to do away with the paper brochure and the numbered posts and replace them with on-site interpretive signs. And we're working on that with the help of the Extension Service, and I hope by next meeting I'll have a list of the signs we propose and some of the content. And then, just as a follow-up, if the Mascoma Bank grant is granted, that should help actually pay for producing the signs.
Right. Okay. The box at the bog continues to be empty. I looked at it yesterday, and I think there was one map left in there. So people are using those. And what did we get, a couple of hundred printed?
Yeah, I have 200 maps that I picked up, and I go there like 3 times a week and put maps in,
And they're gone.
and they're gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, some people do take the map, and then when they're done, they shove it back in the box. But most often, they just take the maps. So I've been putting in, you know, 10 or 12 each time I go, and they go pretty quick. But we still have maps. I still have them in my car.
Okay.
Mike, could we put a QR code up there that gives it takes you to an electronic version of that map? Just a PDF on your phone?
Yeah, matter of fact, Jim and I were talking about that because we want to get a more coordinated effort between our website and the trailhead maps, the You Are Here maps, and try to get everything coordinated. I mean, short-term answer is, yeah, I can put a QR code for that specific map to go right to our website for the bog, short-term, but I don't think the map is accurate as is, right?
It's not.
Yeah, so, but it'll be close, you know, and at least it'll show the verbiage on the site and talk about the bog. So, you know, but we're going to be updating all of those things as we go along. But answer to your question is yes, I can do that. I can make up a QR. I'll stick it on a bulletin board if you want.
Yeah, I was thinking specifically to the interpretive 1 through 16
Yeah,
map.
yep, can do.
Mark, the new map will be oriented so we have Newport Road where it is. In other words, when you look at the map, it shows Newport Road further in.
On the brochure, the map on the
Yeah,
brochure?
yeah.
Yes.
Which, I mean, we all know, but somebody new might get a little confused. Okay, that sounds great. What else do we have?
If you don't mind, I'd like to take just 1 minute and acknowledge the work Don Osler has done. He's been in a number of times helping me out on the block as I was working on lumber, so I very much appreciated his help. And I don't know that you all were aware that he had come out, I don't know, maybe a half dozen times and helped me out. So
That's great, appreciate it.
Worthwhile, for sure.
Dawn and I met day before yesterday, I guess, at the transfer station, which is a place where a lot of business is done. I talked to him about the Chestnut program, and he's agreed to join us, so that's great. Great. So that's the upcoming meeting event, and I hope we have a good turnout and decent weather. I will track Putnam down and just see, you know, if, I don't think you can reserve the beach, but just to make sure that we have facilities there that are going to be available. So that's great. Anything else, or do we have a, yes? Yes. All meetings will be here unless otherwise noted.
September 18th, to answer your question.
Okay, do you have any comments, questions?
Two things. One, on the pollinator thing, that was super interesting, because I'm new, I'm still learning everything, right? I haven't heard of any of this. I don't know if you guys have reached out to the Xerxes Society, or if you've heard of them before. You might be an expert in them. They are mostly on the West Coast, but they have one person in New Hampshire, and I met her a couple months ago. They are working on coming out here, but they focus in invertebrate populations and pollinators and pollinator habitat. So it might be beneficial to reach out to them. I don't know how much they will help you in what you're doing, but whether it's just a point of contact, that might be beneficial. I know they're very interested in getting involved in New Hampshire and New England as a whole, and even an email might be beneficial to that. And then the only other comment is, as I mentioned when I introduced myself, I am very interested in maps, and you talked a lot about maps, and it sounds like you have it covered. But if you ever need help, I'd be happy to volunteer my time. I am a map expert. Hundreds of thousands and thousands of hours making maps, everything from brochures to advanced web maps where you click and they light up and things come out. I do it all. So if you need map help, let me know.
Thank you.
Can you send us your contact info?
Yes, and I wrote my email down on the little paper right there, but I can give it to all of you before I leave it.
We can send that out to you or everyone. But appreciate you coming to visit with us and your interest. Okay, we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it is 10:20.
Budget